Salut tout le monde, c'est moi, Mr. Calvert. J'espère que vous allez bien et tout ça. Today we're going to do some work on the conditional, so just using some phrases in the conditional. We touched on it yesterday and we have seen it before once or twice, but we're going to focus on that in a lot more detail today. Okay, so first things first, if you make a start, you know exactly what you're doing on test de vocabulaire, test de mémoire, just work your way through those. And today's objectives then, so we're going to just focus on using some key phrases that are in the conditional. Then we're going to look at two key verbs in the conditional as well, and that's building us up to hopefully at the end writing some just short and simple phrases that use the conditional. The reason I'm focusing on this is because it's a really easy win for good marks. So if you remember, if we go back to all the stuff we talk about in school, particularly about our speaking test and our writing exam, you need to be saying things in that may or may not happen in the future to be able to get higher marks. And the conditional is a type of future tense. I'll talk more about that in a second. So this is a really, really easy win. If you can write something in the conditional, the person who's marking your exam will sit up and go, wow, this person knows what they're doing and what they're talking about. Okay? Right, really important. Could you spend some time on tiny cards? There's lots and lots of vocab here that we're going to need later on in the lesson. So work your way through. I think there's 5 lessons on this, so there is quite a lot, but it is really, really, really important. Okay, so take some time, work your way through these, and then continue with the next stuff. I'll just throw this reminder in as well. You know how to do it anyway. Pause. Make sure you pause in between each slide. You're not just letting the video run. Pause between each thing. Okay. Right. So here we are. This is where we're going to think about what the conditional actually is. So there's a couple of phrases just at the top here that we've seen really all the way through French. Probably you've seen even since year 7 or year 8. So the top phrase, je voudrais, is a really, really classic French phrase. Most people know it. I think probably if you went out onto the street and asked people, je voudrais, anybody in the street, they would probably, I hope, know what je voudrais means. So we're all pretty comfortable that je voudrais means I would like. And then j'aimerais is just another way of saying the exact same thing. So 2 ways of saying the same thing there. Now, the other phrase that we've got that we're pretty good at, or that we know in a slightly different form, is ce serait. So I think we're very good at ce sera, which would mean it would be, it will be, whereas ce serait is going to be it would be. Okay, so the thing with the conditional is that it's based on something else happening. You're not sure yet if it's going to happen or not, because it would happen. So it would happen if I had lots of money. If I had lots of money, I would buy a house. If I was rich, I would go on holiday whenever I wanted. So there's got to be other things that happen to allow that event or that thing to take place, and it's a condition. You know, if somebody says to you on one condition, you can do it, but on one condition. That's what the conditional is all about. Something else has got to happen to then in turn allow that to take place. Okay? So, in French, there is only one word for the conditional. Okay? There's just one word. The word would doesn't exist in French. It isn't there. So we need to think of it in English as being would plus something else. Would be, would do, would stay, would have. Okay? So it's would plus something else. Now, what I'd like, we're going to look at these 3 examples together, and now I want us to just pick out where the verb is in these sentences. So if we look at the yellow box here with would plus something, in English we're going to have 2 bits to it. Would like, would be. In French there's only one thing. So if we look at je voudrais together, and you can do that however you want to do this, you can highlight it on the screen, you can highlight it on paper, it's up to you. We're just going to highlight together where the verb is. So je voudrais, there's only one bit, and the verb, why is it not letting me highlight? It's got to be that bit there, je voudrais. If we look at j'aimerais, it's slightly different because we've got the apostrophe here, but it's exactly the same concept. One thing, and it's the aimerait bit. Okay, and if we look at ce serait, much easier, again, just one thing there, we're going to highlight it. Okay, so there's just one word. We need to read it. We see this a lot though. One word in French, 2 or 3 words in English. So for the conditionals, one thing in French, 2 things in English. So actually French is a little bit easier in this case. Now, for these 6 sentences that are just here before, the first job that you've got is to identify the verb in each of the phrases. Okay, so just as we've done here with the first 3 in green, I'd like you to have a go at doing those other 6 yourself. Okay, and then once you've done that, could you have a go at translating the phrases into English? Okay, merci. I'll pause now and have a go at that. Right, next activity then. So this is just some sentences using, again, these are the phrases that we'd seen last lesson and the verbs that we've just had on the last slide. So it shouldn't be too much of a stretch for you. What I'd like you to have a go at is the words that would fit in the gaps are down at the bottom there, numbered 1 to 6, and the sentences here have got the gaps left in. So what you'll need to do is read the sentence, try and work out what it means, have a look at the verbs and think to yourself, right, what does that mean, what does that mean, and then try and just fill in the gaps. Two of them can be used for more than one of the questions. So there's two sentences that could have two of the possible answers. They're interchangeable. They could be either or. Okay, so I would pause now and have a go at this, and then I'm going to talk about the answers in a second. Okay, excellent. So answers are going to be, so for the first sentence, I'm just going to put the numbers in. So this is just for you to check your answers. Number 6, so me marierai, me marierai. Number 2 is going to be resterai. Number 3 could be 3 or 5. So this is one of the ones where it could be either or. So we could have aurait or we could have adopterai. Here again, it could be 3 or 5. So aurait or adopterai. And then number 5 is number 2, vivrai. And then the last one, number 6, even just as a process of elimination, would be serait. Okay? So can I just have you now, now that you've checked your answers and you've got the right verbs in the right place, could you translate these answers, these sentences into English for me, please? Okay? Merci. Right, moving on then. So this is the next step. So there are just some simple phrases in the conditional. This is going to be something slightly different. We've done this before, I think, but not in as much detail as this. So I'm going to call this a language hub. Now, the first thing before we move forward, this is just the list of other vocabulary that you will need later on. It's the stuff that's on tiny cards. So this is where the tiny cards comes in. So if you practice them on tiny cards, you'll have a good idea already of what the words are and all of that kind of thing. So this is just here on this slide for your reference to pop back to when we need it later. So when I say come back to your slide, to the vocabulary, it's back to this slide, okay? Now, we're going to have a look at this together. So this is a language hub. This is avoir in the conditional. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a place to put together all of the phrases that we need so that we've got them in one place, so that if when we do a piece of writing in maybe 10 or 15 minutes time, everything's just in one place together. Okay, now the first job that you've got is I'd like you to fill in the gaps that you've got here. Now if you look, I've got j'aurais and I've given you here the English I would have. Okay, now the thing we've got in the middle is avoir, so we've got this space here that needs to be filled in. This is the infinitive, it's in its raw form. So I want you just to write here what this is going to be. It's going to be to something. Okay, so to something. I'm not going to tell you anymore. And then have a go at these two. So we've got il, elle, aurait, and then nous aurions. All right. So pause now. Have a go at just filling those in, and we'll see how you get on in a second. Okay. So I'm just going to do a quick check of what you should have. So for avoir in the middle, you should have to have. For il and elle aurait, you should have he or she would have. And then for the bottom left, nous aurions, you should have we would have. Okay, so that's just the first starting point now. Now, what we're going to do is using the vocabulary that's on the previous slide, so on slide 6, those two lists of words, I would like you to turn this into a mind map and just connect one or two of the phrases with these verb phrases, with these conditional phrases. Now, this is just, it's like a really easy, simple sentence builder, and all of them are interchangeable. So if we do, we're going to do j'aurais together as an example. So if I put on here, I've put a little extra arrow on there, and then I'm going to add in une famille. So j'aurais une famille. I would have a family. Okay. Now that une famille, we could use it for any of the others as well. We could say nous aurions une famille. We would have a family. Il aurait une famille. It could be used for any of them. If I go in with another one for j'aurais, we could have un grand mariage. So j'aurais un grand mariage. I would have a big wedding. All right. So there's two examples there. However you want to do it, it's entirely up to you. You can do it on paper. You can do it using the PowerPoint if you want. It's a bit more fiddly and it'll take a bit more time. It's entirely your choice. But you're just going to fill this up with loads of different examples from the vocabulary on the last slide, please. Okay. Now, I'm not going to check these, so this is for you to work on yourselves, okay? Because there could be so many different ways of doing it. Once you've done the last one, avoir, could you have a go at this one, which is être? Okay, so exactly the same thing, but if you look back to the slide, there's one column that says things that are, and then there's another one that is things that have. So on here you're going to use things that you would be or would have. So again, we've done the first thing, je serai, I've filled that in, I would be. Could you first of all just fill in what the English is for these little boxes with the equal signs? Then once you've done that, have a go at completing the rest of the mind map using the phrases from the list. Okay, now we're building up to doing a little piece of writing. It's going to be very short, very simple. We're going to use the things that we've had on the previous slide. So the point of this is that we're using everything that we've had in the lesson to lead up to us being able to do this piece of writing. You're not just going to sit there and think, oh God, I've got to write something in French now, and just make it up from your head. You're using the things that are on the piece of paper in front of you. Not the piece of paper, or the PowerPoint slide, it's up to you. Before we move on, I just want you to remember these other things I would like you to try and include. So it's stuff that you're really, really good at, you're really, really natural with it. So things like your connectives, linking your words and phrases together, modifiers, so not just saying I am sad, saying that you're very, very sad, or that you're absolutely jealous and things like that. So just adding in a bit more variety. Then I've got some of these show-off phrases. Now we had these last lesson. You might want to include some of these just to show off as well, so you can just combine them together into your phrases and sentences, okay? So just remember this slide, pop back to it and use it. There might be other things that you remember as well that you want to just try and use yourself too. It's entirely up to you, okay? So here's our little writing activity. So we've not done this before actually, and I used to do this all the time in the past, and I've not done it for a while. So it's just an easy way of building up a piece of writing that's got lots of complexity, lots of richness, good range of language and everything like that. So we're all going to start at the first star. So we're actually going to start at the top and work our way up to 3 stars. Okay, so you're just going to work through each of these steps, and I've given you a really clear instruction of what you need to include. So for each of the stars, so for 1 star, 2 star and 3 star, you're going to include something that you want that the relationship would be like, and then something that you or the other people would have. I'm going to let you read through that yourself because you don't need me to explain it to you. But what I have done on the next slide is I've put together a little example that I've written using the vocabulary just to show you what to do. Okay, so if we have a look here, so the first star is just you talking about yourself. Okay, so I've got this is what I've written. Have a read through yourself. I'm not going to talk it through. The second star is you talking about another person, so using he or she to talk about a different person. It doesn't have to link. It doesn't have to link to the first star. It can if you want to, but it doesn't. It can be completely separate if you like. Then the third star, which is taking it to a next level of complexity, is going to use we, so talking about you and somebody else, to say whatever you like using the vocabulary from today's lesson, okay? So work your way through those steps. Remember the things that I've said about using the connectives, using the modifiers, the show-off phrases if you like, and stick to the things that we've used in the lesson. I will be on Teams to help you, and if you've got something that you'd like to try and say, I will give you a hand. But if too many people start to say, it's the same in lessons, if everyone starts to say, how do you say this, how do you say that, I'll just say very politely, no, because I want to stick with the vocabulary that we've got today. Okay? Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.